number one, do something. That's the big thing. Make a change. If you're not changing it, you're not understanding if it's getting better or worse. You're just dealing with the situation. So get out there and like I said before, have somebody give you a good baseline setup. It's probably the single cheapest, best performance upgrade you'll ever do to your motorcycle, really. And keep notes. If you're a track day junkie, or you're real interested in how suspension works, the guy who he's scratching his chin is like, this stuff, yeah. He's taking notes. Keep notes. If you made an adjustment, but do something enough. Don't just put one click in there and go out and ride and think you're going to feel a difference. Throw 3, 4, 5 clicks in to make a significant amount of change where you're going to feel a difference and say, okay, is this better or worse? And one thing at a time, please. Don't try to throw 15 millimeters of ride height and 5 clicks of rebound, 2 clicks of compression, and go out and you're lost. You can't feel what each individual adjustment is going to do to the bike and how it's going to respond. So you need to think about what you're doing, take some good notes. That way, if it feels awful, you can always go back to what you had, which was pretty good. The track day. If you've been riding on the street and you're ready to go to the track, please have someone check your suspension, because it's probably too soft. It's probably going to feel bad at the track, because the speeds at which you're going to be going is way more than you should be using on the street. The action of the suspension it's much greater. All the dynamic forces acting upon the bike at the track are much higher than what you normally use on the street. So think about that. Get it taken care of and get it looked at. This is the big point here I use with a lot of the military guys is always check your tire pressure. I've had guys come in just like, man, my bike just feels awful. When I'm going around the corner, it feels like the handlebars just want to fold under. And the first thing I do is I reach down, I check front tire pressure, and it's got 15 pounds of air in there. Well, yeah, guess what? Yeah, there's your, he's like, you're the greatest suspension guy ever, because I pumped some air into his tire, made the bike feel good. But if you leave that bike alone for some bikes, even a week or two, you'll bleed 2 to 4 psi out of tires. Motorcycle rims are notorious for losing pressure. So check it often. Every time you ride, really, unless you've ridden the day before and it was good, give it a check. Takes a couple minutes. Get you a nice accurate tire pressure gauge, and just check tire pressure. How do you know what the good tire pressure is? That's probably the single biggest question we get at track days. It's like, how much air should I have in my tires? Well, lower isn't always better. There's a lot of tire manufacturers where lower temperatures do work better for that specific tire, but each and every tire, I crack up if you're on any of these online forums, somebody will pop in there and say, hey, what's the best tire pressure to use at a track day? Wow, could you be any more vague? What's your riding level? What's your skill level? What track are you going to? What's the temperature? Where on the planet are you? What kind of tires and what type of tire for that brand are you using? Because each one is pretty specific, okay? So that's a big part of understanding, how your bike's going to perform. And so that's a big deal right there. So know, and if you don't know, either ask your suspension guy or ask one of the local racers that are there, because they play with that stuff all the time. Personally, I can feel like a 1 to 2 pressure difference in a tire. And once you get a good level of experience, you'll be able to tell what works best. And if you're operating at a pretty high level of competition, 1 or 2 psi can make a pretty big difference. But understand that some tires take higher pressures, some tires take lower pressures. All right? And think about upgrading. Especially if you're like an entry-level rider, if you're starting out on like a Monster and you're getting pretty fast, well, you're going to rapidly reach the limits of the stock suspension on there because it has limited adjustability. Okay, that's when you want to think about, okay, well, do I really love this bike? Do I want to change some things out and maybe, put some new forks on it, or get these modified so I can have some adjustment, or do I want to step up from this entry middle line motorcycle to something more performance oriented? Those are the kind of choices you have to make. But try to upgrade and make some change. Getting a good feel and getting the bike to perform well with that good base setup is all about geometry. The main controlling factor there is ride height. Okay, you've seen a lot of bikes, you know, who decided that this bike needs this much fork showing through here, right? You don't know. Somebody at Ducati decided, well, the fork should be slid up through the triple clamp this much. Is this the best for this bike? Well, you don't know until you, one, measure it, or two, understand the way geometry affects this bike. For the front end of the bike, your big issues are what's called rake and trail, okay? And what controls that, rake and trail is basically, the rake is how much the bike is kicked out. The trail is a measurement of the distance between the center line of the axle and the center line of the steering head. You measure that out here. And then your offset is how far ahead of your steering head are your fork tubes. Okay, do we have any like hardcore Ducati junkies in here? Like wanting to change your suspension like crazy? Because one of the major modifications for these bikes is changing the offset on the triple clamps. Okay, and what that is designed to do is kind of increase your trail number to make the bike a little more stable once your speed increases, once you become a faster rider. The rear suspension, some of the controlling factors there is, one, if you have an adjustable shock that has a ride height capability, or adjustable linkage like the Ducati has, you can change the height of the back of the bike. Okay, that does a couple of things. It one, reduces trail if you raise it up, and it changes the weight balance of the motorcycle. Okay, and then there's swing arm angle. And once swing arm angle is important for guys who are really getting out there and racing and pushing the bike, trying to find the limits of the motorcycle. Most beginner intermediate riders, they have no idea what swing arm angle means and how it controls power transmission to the ground and how it acts upon the suspension. That's where you start getting into more complicated geometry and the way the bike is set up. So, and even especially on this bike, because of the single-sided swing arm and the rear eccentric that's used to tighten or loosen the chain once you change gearing, if you change the gearing on the back of this bike, it's gonna change, even one tooth, it's gonna change the rear ride height of the motorcycle. Okay, because if you go smaller, you gotta take that slack out there. You go bigger, you gotta go the other way. Okay, and the back of the bike will move accordingly. I was talking to another guy earlier. There's even the Ducati factory race team. They used to the World Superbike guys used to use. They had an actual computer program that helped them calculate how gearing changes affect their ride height, and they calculate stuff out. Because one, you don't have an adjustable swing arm pivot here, so you can't make changes there to control swing arm angle. And so to compensate for gearing changes, they had a sole computer program that just helped them deal with, changing that rear eccentric and how it affected the back of the bike. So it's important for those guys. And even on a regular bike, like we got some 999 riders in here. Yeah, you have a standard swing arm on there. Same thing for you. If you change that rear sprocket and go to a smaller or bigger rear sprocket, your rear axle either moves forward or back to take up that chain slack, you have effectively reduced or lengthened your wheelbase of your motorcycle. You reduce it, a lot of times based on swing arm angle, it's going to change the way the back of the bike is. And so, hey, I just changed the gearing on my bike. Why does it feel weird when I'm riding now? Well, something's changed. So you have to counteract that and to recover that original geometry. Or you can just change it to make it better. And here's our RC8R that we're using at Fastrack. It's a pretty fun bike to ride, but this is showing your basic geometries here. Your rake and trail numbers would be up here, is measured between the center line. There's your offset, center line of the fork and the steering head angle. The vertical line here, measurement out this way, would be your trail numbers. Your swing arm angle, and then your rear ride height is measured. It's actually a special tool that I have that we use to measure the rear ride height on the Ducati. So what can you do as far as geometry goes? You guys know that even changing your tires can change the geometry of the bike. Okay, every tire manufacturer, say you want to put a 195 or 190/55 series tire on your bike. Well, as you can see here, the rear, the 195/55 from Dunlop, the 211 GPA, is 8 millimeters smaller than the 195/55 Bridgestone BT003. So if you had this on your bike and you put this on your bike, the back of your bike would go up 4 millimeters basically. So now maybe you don't want that. If you had a pretty tight, a small trail number and the bike was kind of up on its nose anyway, and you put that tire on, the thing is like tipping in too fast now and it's scaring you. Same thing in reverse. You know, you could change from the tall tire to the short tire, and now the bike doesn't want to turn. Okay, front tires as well. The industry standard sizes don't always go over to an industry standard diameter.